This video is going to be the definitive guide to how many sets you should be doing to build good, thick muscle mass. Now, I'm going to break this down by what level you may be at, because this answer really just depends on you and how long you've actually been training. So first off, we're going to start with beginners. Okay. Beginner is somebody who just starts in the gym to just about under 1 year of solid training. So what should a beginner do? How many sets per muscle per week should a beginner do to build more muscle? Well, again, like I said, this is going to vary, but a good range is anywhere between 5 to 10 sets per muscle group per week. You got to remember, when you're starting out, you have to have the mentality of less is more. You want to try to get more out of your sets from doing less. So for example, let's just say for triceps, I'm doing 3 sets on Monday and 3 sets on Thursday. And I'm actually getting development out of that. That would be 6 total sets per that muscle group per week. And every week I start to see more and more improvements. I'm going up in weight, my form is better, and I'm putting on muscle mass. I start to see it. It doesn't necessarily mean if I do 8, 9, or 10 sets, I'm going to get more out of that. So you have to think, okay, what's the most I can get out of as little as possible? Because if you can do that and you can milk that your entire fitness journey, you're going to be way far ahead of many people. Because if it takes less for you to stimulate the muscle, that requires less time in the gym and overall less that you need to put toward that muscle building journey. So for example, if your triceps grow, and I'm just using triceps here, but if your arms grow with 4 sets a week, there's no reason to do more. So the beginner has to have that mentality of, I want to get as much as I can out of as little as possible. And I want to try to do that for as long as I can. That's the mentality beginners have to have. Now, let's step down. Say you've been training over a year, maybe up to 4 years at this point. You're considered an intermediate lifter. An intermediate lifter needs anywhere between 8 to 15 sets per muscle group per week. Again, as we start to improve on our fitness journey, it gets harder and harder to put on muscle. So we need to stimulate it a little bit more. And we do that by adding on more sets. But the key here and the caveat here is, as you can see, from the beginners, it's 5 to 10. Intermediate is 8 to 15. So it's not much more of a range here. But the mentality that you have to have as an intermediate is quality over quantity. Think about doing quality sets versus doing quantity and more. Because most people will tell you, okay, you have to just keep doing more sets and more sets and more sets. But what starts to happen when your volume gets too high, the quality of your sets goes down. You want every rep of every set to stimulate muscle. So in this intermediate stage, again, 1 year plus of training all the way to 4 years, you want to really have that mentality of quality over quantity. Quality sets all the way through. All right, let's move on to advanced training. Advanced training is 4 years plus of solid, smart, progressive training, not random going to the gym a couple weeks a year, then stopping, and not 4 years straight in a row plus. Now you are considered an advanced person. So how many sets do you need per muscle group per week? Anywhere between 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week in the advanced stages. And the reason why is, again, because as we start to advance, the muscle gains start to taper down. It gets harder to put on muscle. Your body starts fighting back and doesn't want to build more muscle. So the only way that we can put more muscle on is by stimulating it with a little bit more volume. Okay, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. So again, if you're doing chest and you're on the higher end of that, you're doing 10 sets on Monday, 10 sets on Thursday. Okay. Here's what I want to tell you. Here's a little piece of advice that I want to tell you when it comes to how many sets you need to build muscle. Okay. You don't want to rush to being advanced. When I first started out, I was rushing to do an advanced training program, rushing to put on pounds of muscle, thinking that if I did an advanced training program, that I would advance quicker. And that's not necessarily what happens. You always have to keep that less is more mentality. You want to be stingy with adding more sets. You don't just want to haphazardly do that. You want to be stingy and really think about it. Like I said, if you're doing 4 sets for arms a week and your arms are growing, why would you even consider doing 5? Because remember, every body part's going to respond to this a little bit differently. So for example, if you're growing your arms on 4 sets a week, but your legs are really lacking behind and you're doing 4 sets for legs as well, then you need to bump up that, put more effort toward the legs to get them to catch up. So you need to allocate more of the volume to where you need to, as opposed to just keep hammering everything away evenly. It doesn't work like that. Certain body parts are going to respond to less, certain body parts are going to respond to more. So you have to figure that out, because remember, if you're doing 4 sets for arms and they're growing, and then you need to do 20 sets for legs to get them growing, if you were doing 20 for arms and 20 for legs, your total overall recovery would be shot and you wouldn't be able to recover and you wouldn't build any muscle. So this is why it's so important. You always have to have that less is more mentality and being stingy with adding sets. The other thing too, form and technique over everything else, because form, technique equals more tension on the muscle. More tension on the muscle means more quality sets being done. And like I said before, be stingy with adding more sets. Try to keep the sets down and focus on keeping the quality and tension and form up with every movement you do. Make every single rep count. All right. Then you always want to make sure that your last set of every exercise that you're doing, you are taking it to failure. So for example, if you're doing 3 sets, I always look at that 3rd set as like my top set, and I'm always trying to push the bar on that last set. Again, quality. We want to force that last one to force progression. All right. And if you're confused about how to train or what you should be doing, I got you covered. I have a free 6-week training program that I'm going to give you. No strings attached. I just want to help you to put more muscle mass on. All you got to do is click that link below. And you can get that program absolutely free. All right, guys, this is Anthony, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.